Hey, this is Michael Brent Collings. I'm the author of GRIMMWORLD, The Witch in the Woods, and I'll be reading a page a day with my real, not at all paid actor kids. Say hi, real kids.
Hi.
We're going to be doing this a page a day until it goes viral. I reach 100 pages or I get tired, whichever comes first. So please don't forget to share, like, comment, all that stuff, and help us go viral for GRIMMWORLD, The Witch in the Woods, which releases March 5th, 2024. That was odd. Mom and Dad love their children, and normally a man with a strange coat and stranger eyes wielding a strange weapon would have upset them, especially since that man apparently wanted to hurt their children. But nothing Willow and Jake said made a difference. "He tried to attack me, Mom!" shouted Jake. "That's nice, dear," said Mom, wiping tears from her eyes, though Willow could tell it was because she was sad about the move, not about Jake almost getting attacked by a weirdo with creepy eyes. "Did you not hear?" Willow said. "Attacked!" "Awesome, kiddos," Dad said, in the voice he used when he was trying to be happy, so he wouldn't be nervous. And Jake somehow knew he was nervous about the long drive to Idaho, not because of strange men with gold coin eyes or a near murder in the yard. "Time to move." Then they got in their new car and drove away. Willow and Jake looked out the back window at the house they were leaving. They did not look away for a long time, because looking away would have been a sad thing to do. But they did look away before they turned a corner, because strange attack aside, seeing the house disappear forever would have been sadder still. Jake was the first to look away from their old house. He flopped around in his seat and began playing a video game. Video games were not usually allowed in the car, but they had a long way to go, and Mom said, "The long trip will be more fun if you can play some games." A second later, Willow turned around and began reading a book. Books were allowed in the car, but Dad told Willow to take breaks so she wouldn't get car sick, because they had a long way to go, and he said the long trip won't be very fun if you barf all over your brother. "Might be fun for me," said Willow. She was surprised at how much she wanted to cry about leaving home, and how much more she didn't want anyone to see it. "Just try it," said Jake. He was surprised how much he wanted to cry, and he kind of wanted Willow to be mean so he'd have an excuse to do it. Both kids were normal to have those feelings. They were upset and angry and afraid about both the move and the strange man who had tried to hurt Jake. And sometimes when we fill up with feelings, they spill out as tears. Mom and Dad saw all this happening because, other than refusing to acknowledge that Jake almost got attacked by an old man with a strange coat and even stranger eyes, they really were good parents. And they did what good parents always do when they sense tears in the making. They tried too hard. Mom clapped and said for the 100th time that she couldn't wait to see their new Ida home in a voice so bright that it could have lit up the darkest cave. And Dad said, "You know what I want to do? Turn around and realize this was all a huge mistake," murmured Willow. "I want to capture a bear." "What would you do with a bear?" Jake asked, trying to pretend he wasn't interested. "Well, I don't know. Ride it probably, but I wouldn't use a saddle." "You know why?" "Because Idaho is home primarily to the North American black bear, scientific name Ursus americanus, and given that they can run more than 30 miles per hour, it would be hard to catch one and put a saddle on it in the first place," guessed Jake. When he grew up, Jake wanted to be a scientist like his parents. Dad was a kind of scientist called a quantum physicist, which meant he spent long hours every day figuring out what hours and days were made of. Mom was a mechanical engineer and genius inventor, which meant that she spent those same days figuring out how to build things that would make the long hours go either go by faster or seem shorter. Jake hadn't decided what kind of scientist he wanted to be, but he knew it would involve animals because he loved animal facts. Or maybe a physicist because he loved figuring out how things worked. Or perhaps an inventor because he adored making new things after figuring out how the old ones worked. Or possibly he would specialize in all kinds of science just to keep things interesting. "No, I wouldn't even try to catch and ride a black bear," Dad said. "That would be too easy. I'd go full grizzly all the way. Good luck finding a grizzly bear. There are only 65 to 80 of them in Idaho, said Jake, which is 64 to 79 more than my single tush needs, said Dad. And you still haven't guessed why I wouldn't need a saddle. Because the bear would eat you, guessed Willow. It would not, said Dad. It would, said Jake. The average grizzly bear, or Ursus arctos horribilis, weighs between 300 and 800 pounds, has 3-inch claws, and is an omnivore. He looked at Willow and said, That means grizzlies eat anything. I know what it means, you doof, said Willow. And this was true, because though Jake was the scientist, Willow loved art and music, but most especially words, in a way reserved for world champion Scrabble players or self-indulgent novelists. She read books constantly and had even written one herself, a 200-page handwritten story about a pigeon that believed it was a cheerleader and was a private investigator on the side. I'm not a doof. Sure you are. Scientific name Doofus maximus, said Willow. She sniffed and held her nose in the air. A rare creature, the Doofus maximus likes to eat bugs and spend his days playing video games while his brain slowly melts. That's not true, Jake protested. You're right, it's not true, said Willow. Your brain actually melts very quickly. Mom, who had been reading a Welcome to New Marburg pamphlet, said, Kids, in her you are one moment away from a talking to voice. The kids went silent until Dad said, Isn't anyone going to ask why I wouldn't use a saddle for the bear? When no one answered, Dad sulked, until Mom sighed and put the pamphlet away and said, All right, dear, why wouldn't you use a saddle? Dad was driving, but he turned around to look at Willow and Jake with big eyes and a grin so wide that Willow worried the corners of his lips would circle his head, meet in the middle, and the top of his head would fall right off. Dad only used that smile for one thing. The worst thing he did. The totally embarrassing Dad thing. Uh-oh, said Jake, squeezing Willow's hand. Be brave, said Willow, squeezing Jake's hand back. I wouldn't make a saddle for my bear because I'd have to ride it bareback. Everyone moaned at the pun. Dad's grin grew even more. Get it? Bareback, like no saddle, bear, but also I'm riding a bear, so its back is bear. Get it? Yes, dear, said Mom. We get it. You should keep your eyes on the road before we crash. Dad and Mom were both brilliant, with IQs that measured somewhere between, wow, you're really smart, to, Einstein is on the phone and would like your advice again. But for some reason, Dad still thought whoopee cushions were the height of art and puns were the height of humor. And he never stopped at one pun. Dad winked and turned around just as a car honked its horn and swerved away from them. Whew, he said. That's one thing I won't miss about Los Angeles. Please don't tell another joke. This is hard enough already, said Willow. Mom mimed zipping Dad's lips shut, locking them, and throwing the key out the window. Dad muttered something under his breath. Jake asked if it was a pun, because he was curious. Willow and Mom said not to encourage him, because they were wise. Dad said no, because he was lying. A few minutes later, Dad said he was already tired from the trip. They had only gone 6.2 miles, Jake noted, and closed his eyes long enough that Mom shouted at him. And this time, Willow and Jake really did laugh because Mom was scared, and that made them scared too. And laughing is the best thing to do when you're scared and worried and traveling 1,000 miles to a new Idaho home.